Well, I thought I'd made one video and then we were done. Because I sat down, I made one video, and I thought we were just going to be done. I thought that we had handled it like men. You know, we'd sat down, we talked about it. Vinny is who he is. He's a douche. People were racist to him. That's bad. The fans didn't necessarily, at least I didn't think, really seem to know what was going on. And we just leave that. But you know who doesn't want to let it lie and just let it sort itself out in the court of public opinion? Benfica. The club, who, if you notice in the previous video that I made about this, when I thought I was just going to make one video and let that shit lie, I never mentioned Benfica. I didn't really mention what Mourinho was saying. I didn't really mention what the club was saying because I didn't feel that they were particularly involved in this moment. Gianluca Prestiani, Mbappe, Vinny, right? These were the guys that were involved in this moment. But the club just basically decided they wanted to change that. This could be some sort of it's a decision by the club to try to not leave the player alone, but it happens in two parts, and it just kind of gets worse from there. So Benfica at 8:40 p.m. on the 17th, which is yesterday. So 8:40 p.m. my time, which would have been, in Portugal, we're talking about 5 hours ahead. 1 in the morning, 1:40 in the morning, right, that this was posted. It was the statement that Gianluca Prestiani released. It says, "Together by your side, juntos ao teu lado." I'm sorry, I'm sure I butchered that. I ran this through Google Translate, said, "I want to clarify that at no point did I direct racist insults at the player Vinicius Jr., who unfortunately misinterpreted what he thought he heard. I have never been racist, and I regret the threats I received from Real Madrid players." Look, there's just a lot of here's what's difficult in this situation, right? You want to go with innocent until proven guilty, but this is not a legal proceeding in the sense that, we're not talking about whether Gianluca Prestiani should have his freedom taken away from him and be put in jail, which is what the principle of innocent until proven guilty applies to. If you are understanding of law, at least in the United States, and I'm sure in a lot of other countries where normal legal practices occur, when you're talking about civil cases, not, whether this person's going to jail or not, but civil cases, which, are lawsuits because I slipped and fall and you owe me some money, those are not innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That is preponderance of evidence, right? And this is where it becomes obvious that I come from a family of lawyers, right? But if you're trying to win a civil case, you do not need to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. You need to prove it with a preponderance of the evidence. Basically, you'd say over 60%. And that's what we have. That's what we have. We have Mbappe saying he said it 5 times. If you watch the video, which we're going to watch again, we got a new angle here because Benfica tweeted it out themselves. There is an instant reaction. There is not a delay. There's no time to think about it. It is an instant reaction. And I'm going to level with you, right? Because we have this interaction a lot. It is obvious to me that a lot of you have not spent a lot of time around black people. I don't know how to tell you that any other way than I just did. But it is obvious. Because you know what a unifying experience that black people have is an ability to understand when somebody is being racist to them. I'm not saying that it is 100% that it's impossible to mishear somebody. But to have that, to more than one person mishear it instantly feels unbelievably unlikely to me. Because you know the words. Because it happens. Now, if you are not black, you don't know that. Now, I don't talk about this very much, but I do. I have an adopted brother who is black, right? And as a result of that, and as a result of playing a lot of basketball growing up in AAU and everything else, I spent a lot of time in black-coded spaces. I spent a lot of time around black people having these sorts of conversations, not as some sort of scholarly exercise, but just because this is the sort of shit that just kind of comes up in those experiences. You know the words. You know the words. You know the gestures. You know the words. If you go through your life with that, with your race being a factor, which is something that I don't really ever have to. The race that I am and the way that I look in the mirror, outside of the fact that my hairline's in full retreat like the French in World War II, is not something that I really have to face up with. It's not something that the world reminds me of anytime, really. It's just not. But if you are Vinicius or Mbappe, particularly people in the public light, that maybe have the opportunity to hear it more than the average person just because of their exposure to more humanity, you know. It is not typically something that you're going to mishear. It is not typically, like, you know what it is. I'm not saying it's impossible to have misheard it, right, which is the whole accusation here. Of course, part of the accusation is like, oh, I wasn't calling him that. I was calling him something else. That's also, not like a super great thing to be calling people. Not racist, but homophobic instead. You know what I'm saying? Like, we'll leave that to one side because I have no idea what's going on with all of that. I'm just saying that if you are Vinicius, if you are Mbappe, that's something, you know what those words are, and you know what they aren't. And when you hear them, you see a reaction that looks a lot like, ready, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait, there he is, instantly. Mbappe, Vinny, and Camavinga all knew. They knew immediately. They all acknowledged it in their own way. And Vinny is somebody that is clearly very aggressive at trying to root this out. Decides to run straight over to the referee to deal with it. Now, of course, this video is pulled from a tweet that Benfica released less than an hour later. Right? They're trying to support their player. They're saying, we're all with you, which is not true. I've been reading lots of debates from Benfica fans about what was going on. And again, I don't really go at the Benfica fans. I've seen one video of one Benfica fan making a monkey gesture. Fuck that dude, right? But I think the majority of the Benfica fans thought we had a Senegal-Morocco situation, thought that this was Vinny being his normal self, antagonizing the hell out of everybody, and then like threatening to leave the field. They didn't know that there was the potential for this to have been a racist incident. So I hold nothing against Benfica fans in that sense at all. I still don't. Right? But the club itself has now put itself in the crosshairs because not only did they tweet this out, instead of maybe staying quiet until you can try to like figure out what's happened more, although there really isn't going to be more figuring out. We have all we have. We've got all the angles. We've heard from all of the people that were in earshot that were able to do, that are able to say anything about what happened. It is a he said situation. And that is what it will always be, which is difficult for some people. And it allows room where if you are typically aligning on one side here, you're going to try and you have enough room to stay on that side. There's no way I can factually be like, this is what happened. But let me throw something out there. If you're Benfica, you probably don't want to be, we all stand with this guy who's been accused of racism because he says he didn't do it. You probably want to also condemn racism in the process. Just a thought. You know what I'm saying? And then people will go, well, it's implied. Fuck that. You've got a player who's accused by multiple massive players in the world of being openly racist. You might as well step out and say, we don't condone any of that behavior, but we don't think he did that. If that's the business you want to stand on, that would probably be the way to do it. But then this tweet is crazy. And this is, to me, what indicates that Benfica's defense here is kind of bullshit. Like, they're just tweeting for fucking, I don't even know. As the image demonstrates, given the distance, the Real Madrid players could not have heard what they claimed to have heard. And so they've posted this video as a way to try and indicate that these guys are somehow not in earshot of what Prestiani is saying. That they're somehow not in earshot of what Prestiani is saying. He pulls up his shirt and he says it. And it, like, what was there some sort of coordinated, organized move by Real Madrid? I mean, you have Mbappe saying he heard him say it 5 times. Right? Like, I came across that. Mbappe saying that he heard it. Right? And all these guys, like, they had a little team huddle right after the goal, and they're like, we're going to get this guy. We're going to fucking, we're going to get this guy. They heard it. And at the very least, even if this point is true, even if this statement by Gianluca Prestiani is true, then this argument's still bullshit. Because your argument is the Real Madrid players could not have heard what they claim to have heard given the distance. They fucking heard something. Even Prestiani admits that they heard something. The distance has nothing to do with what they heard. They heard it. The logic of this defense just falls apart. Somehow Benfica, in their attempt to defend their player and like what happened, has nearly admitted and proved the opposite. Because they're just trying to throw shit at the wall and see what sticks. His statement says they heard something else. Benfica's saying they were too far away to hear anything. You guys probably got to get together and get your story right here. Either they were too far away to have heard anything, or they heard something else. It can't be both. And they definitely heard something. You can literally see it in the video. They heard something. Camavinga glances to the left. Kylian Mbappe hears it. I mean, he's all the way over there. He turns back. Do you see that? Like, you see it. You see it happen. Now, obviously, there's always a counter argument. A million reasons he could have turned back. Maybe he turned back because Vinny was running this way. He still looked like, what is Benfica doing here? Like, really, the point of this video is I am so baffled by what Benfica has chosen to do in this situation. My mind is actually blown. But I do want to take a moment for Jose Mourinho, who kind of, I don't necessarily like using the term victim blamed in this situation. But, I think factually, according to these statements from Real Madrid, who are all experiencing this, Vinicius Jr. was a victim of somebody being racist to him. That happened. Right now, Jose Mourinho is now talking to Vinicius, and it's since going to come out what he said. The goal should, and here's the statement: Vinny Jr.'s goal should be the main thing about the game. But when you score like that, you should celebrate in a respectful way. But I will be independent. I will not say I believe Prestiani or Vinny. I was not there. Prestiani denies it, but I will not pick a side. The biggest legend of the club is Eusebio. This club is not racist. That's always the I have a black friend, I can't be racist vibe. I can't even imagine it just being a black dude playing in the 60s, the type of experience that Eusebio might have had in particular matches. You think it's bad now, wind the clock back. You know what I'm saying? That is also true, and that is great. But until these Twitter posts, the argument really wasn't against Benfica at all. It was against Prestiani. You know what I mean? And that was the conversation that we were having. Now, part of this process is Vinicius was obviously celebrating incredibly aggressively. In a way, not just with the thing on the post, but walking around the stadium, kind of going after everybody in the way that he does, because again, he is a douche. And he puts himself out there as this like antagonizing jerk, which in no way justifies you being racist towards him. It does, however, justify you telling him to fuck off and jeering him and booing him, as a good self-respecting fan would do in that situation. But the irony of Jose Mourinho, the same man that did this after beating Barcelona in the Champions League, like, a lot of people could have said this to Vinny and it would have made more sense, saying like, yes, your celebration did kind of cross a bit of a line. And you're going to end up creating this kind of tension and animosity from the crowd. If he's just talking about the crowd and the guy that threw the bottle at him and whatever, obviously that's not okay. But you are going to antagonize and create that animosity by doing that thing. But Jose Mourinho telling somebody to tone down the celebration is absurd. I mean, we're talking about a guy like what is this? What is this? And you know what? Even though Jose Mourinho, and this kind of proves my point, is a raging asshole sometimes, right? And if you are playing against him and he beats you, he is the most annoying person in the entire world. He is insufferable. He's unstoppably insufferable. If you're competing against him and he beats you, he's ripping away from Victor Valdez. He's giving it large to the fans. You know what didn't happen to Jose Mourinho at all in this experience? Nobody was racist to him. They told him to go fuck themselves. They called him every curse they could possibly think of. They probably said a bunch of horrible things about his mother. They were not racist to him. And that's the fucking difference we're talking about here. But yeah, pretty hypocritical from Jose on that part too.